But one thing I wanted to talk about, because I think it touches in everything that you just said, is that on your LinkedIn page, you have a book that you talk about. And the book is The 3 Big Questions That Changes Every Teenager. And you said you can't wait to read it again. Yeah. And the questions are, who am I? Where do I fit? What difference can I make? And so that kind of tied into everything you just talked about. But we talk about identity, purpose, and serving. And to me, that's what you're pouring into these people, is to try to figure out. Because if you don't have your identity, and you talked about worth a lot, we see it at Hiswell Homes, is that's huge as far as stigma and the worth that they feel, and it causes a lot of wrong behaviors and stuff that lead them down into different areas that are hard to get out of. So can you talk to me about why you feel that book's so important? How do you tie that into what you're doing now that you just kind of talked about? I think it definitely fits in where you just went with the conversation.
Yeah. So the book is very similar to what you said. It's identity, belonging, and purpose. So, oh man, I could go on and on. So identity, they really struggle with, where do I fit, right? Where do I, and it's from the concrete, like literal, like which friend group do I fit into? Where am I going to sit at lunch? Who am I going to hang out with at break? So it's even that, the identity of, if I join that friend group, like kids try on friend groups like clothes. They'll like look at a friend group over there and they'll try that on for a while. And they're like, nah, it doesn't fit well, or, well, part of it fits. I'll keep that on, but the rest I'm going to put back on the shelf. And then they try that friend group on, right? They're always trying to figure out like who I am. And they do that through their friends or through their classmates, right? It's always, that's how they figure it out. That's how they try things on. Or they live through the risk-taking of another kid. And then they're like, man, I would never do that in a million years, but man, it is so funny when he does, right? So they're all trying to figure out who I am. And then ultimately, the identity piece of who I am in Christ, right? And for some, so middle schoolers, especially your early middle schoolers, your younger ones, they're still super concrete. And so when you start talking about their identity in Christ, in some ways that is so abstract. Like they don't get that. Because up until then, their faith, they just parrot their mom and dad or their guardian, right? They just parrot what they've heard at home. And so part of what middle school is, they start thinking abstractly. They start thinking, they start doubting, right? They doubt their faith, and that is part of it becoming theirs, right? They start saying, I'm not going to believe what my mom and dad believe. I'm going to figure this stuff out for myself. And so when they're trying to figure out their identity piece, who am I in Christ? And we say all the time, you're an image bearer, right? You're an image bearer in Christ, image bearer in Christ. But for some of these kids, that doesn't resonate quite enough. Like I'm 10, I don't even know what that means, right? Or I'm 11, what are you talking about?
Right, what's that?
Or, so trying to get them to get a real sense of their identity in Christ and help them to understand that, frankly, that's the only identity that matters.